And we are live. And I'm late. Guys, I'm never late. So I'm sorry about that. So I'm back. You were with Conversations with Jen. And it's my mission to bring forward different experiences and examples and perspectives and emotions and feelings so that you can take the little nuggets along the way and whatever you have going on in your life, use them forward to help you through whatever situation you're in. And I am so excited to be in conversation with Dr. Christy. Wow, that was a tongue twister. It came out funny. Dr. Christy today. We've been in conversation a lot in the past, and I'm so grateful to call her my friend. And she has a book coming out called Coordinating the Chaos Through Birth and Burnout, which whoop, whoop, she's been working on for a year, you guys. How exciting, right? And this woman, she's been in practice for over 12 years. She's a holistic chiropractor. She practices applied kinesiology among a host of other cellular, emotional, energetic stuff that I won't even get into because she's the expert in it. And her knowledge and support has been integral in my life and my healing. So, Christy, welcome back in another conversation with me.
Well, thank you for welcoming me. And you said all that stuff about me way more beautifully than I could. So thank you.
You're welcome. Did I miss anything?
Not that I can think of.
Good. All right, guys, today we are talking about really with knowing Christy's book is coming out, Coordinating the Chaos Through Birth and Burnout. This is really for the mom who's ready to pull her hair out, right? The mom who's in the midst of chaos, who is in the storm, not being the calm, and just has life is getting in front of her, right? Christy, what initial tips before we get into the couple topics that we're going to talk about today within the book? What initial tips or suggestions do you have, broad range, for the moms out there who are in the midst of the storm and in the midst of the chaos and they are having a hard time getting it under control?
So the first thing that I can say is I get it. Because the one thing you didn't say in my little intro is that I've got 3 boys of my own right now. They are almost 11, 7.5, and 5. And when you said, the moms who are pulling their hair, I'm there on a regular basis. And so I really just first off want to say, I get it. We can't always, I shouldn't say can't. It's sometimes hard to always be the calm in that storm. And I do believe that the more practice we get, the more amazing people we talk to, like you, the more practice we get at it, the better we can get at doing it on a regular basis. So that said, nobody's perfect. And a blog that I just put out just the other day is just on this exact topic of giving up this idea that there's a right way to do something, that there's a right way to come across as a parent. There's a right way to raise your baby. There's a right way to co-sleep. There's a right way to put your baby in the crib. There's a right way to breastfeed. And it's really overwhelming when we have that perspective that there's either this way or it's wrong. And that's a lot of pressure that we can put on ourselves. It's a lot of pressure that we put on other people or other people put on us. And as if motherhood isn't challenging enough, we don't need that external judgment and that external pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm getting it wrong all the time.
Christy, you said it beautifully. And I had to make a note of it because I think not just in the circumstance, but in life, there's no right way to live. We all have our own unique circumstances. And I think leaning into that is what makes us all unique and beautiful in our own right. So, and I agree with you. And looking at comparison, looking at what other people are doing, not the unknowingness of what the way is. How do you lean into that? How do you lean into what way should we go next?
Yeah, I personally am an recovering perfectionist, as I've likely been calling myself lately. And I used to have that mentality that I had to get it right, or that other people would judge me if I didn't do it this way or that way. And over the last year, I've been really moving away from that because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the kids that I'm trying to raise. And first and foremost, we've talked about this before on different shows and different platforms. It's always about looking within first and making sure that we are balanced and that we're centered and that we're aligned, right? before we can go into a relationship, a conversation, or, doing anything with our children. Right. So I forget the exact question that you posed, but that's just where my brain went first, is just this, is letting go of that perfectionism and that need to feel like I have this image, like, this from conversations we've had in the past, that like, I used to not be able to go on a Facebook Live without makeup. I used to not be able to go on this without, without portraying a certain image.
Yeah.
And I'm really over that, which feels really good.
Yeah.
And, so there's still always things that need practice along the way.
Yeah, I think you dropped so many good nuggets in there, Christy. The first that I wrote down that I wanted to come back to, and I want to make note of another one, who we want to be. I think really just in every area of life, and a specific to your niche in your book, who you want to be as a mom and how you want to show up as a mom, and what you want that definition to be. I think for me is the most critical. And some of the viewers know my son is all grown up, and the person and the mom I want to be now for him definitely looks different because I have different knowledge than I did 10 years ago. But I can tell you, for me, I am more in alignment of who I am and how I show up for him, just because I know exactly who I want to be for him. And I think it wouldn't matter if he was 1 or if he's 12 or if he's 21. Having that for me now keeps me, and it redirects me when I want to just say, just do this for him. Instead, I say, whoa, that's out of alignment, Jen. And that keeps me coming back to center.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that who we want to be in whatever role and whatever point in our life, that's going to be ever changing as we learn and grow and develop more.
Yeah.
So who I wanted to be for my kids when they were babies is a little different now. And don't get me wrong, there's a strong part of me that looks back as I wrote the book, right? As I'm writing this book, I'm like getting annoyed with myself, being like, I wish I had written this for myself 10 years ago. And clearly who we want to be in whatever role and whatever point.
Sorry, it came through twice. Multitasking the different devices. I apologize.
I love it. No, it was an interesting phenomenon, being like, I shared this with you the other day when I said the idea that like, I want to end up I want to start where I know I'm going to end up. And that's not possible. You can't create experience before you've had the experience. Right. So it's just embracing the messy along the way and figuring it out along the way and not judging it along the way.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Christy. And you mentioned, so going back again to embracing the mess, love it, 100% agree. And when you were mentioning the be and who we want to be as parents and who we want to be as people, you led to you insinuated about limiting beliefs, basically. And how do you recommend people stay out of that question about, am I really this? Can I really do this? All the voices that show up. What do you recommend?
First, take inventory of them. I always am a strong proponent of being very aware of what comes into your head when it comes into your head, and then sometimes figuring out why it's there. And with your guidance, not giving it necessarily too much attention and going down the rabbit hole, but giving it attention to know, okay, is this really something I want in there? And then having the realization to make that determination on, is this something that is like running my life in the background that I don't want, in my passenger seat, kind of navigating my life for me? Mm-hmm. Or is this something that it was just the random thing that came up and I can easily roll my eyes at it and say, okay, thanks for sharing, but you can move on now. If that's a consistent pattern or a consistent voice that shows up or not, that to me determines if it's a limiting belief that really needs more attention, or if it's just, okay, yeah, that was annoying and weird, that came up, move on.
Yeah, agreed. Good. Okay, so what other tips do you have for anyone listening about letting go of getting it right as a mom?
First other one that I mentioned in my well, I guess there were a couple that I mentioned in the blog that I wrote the other day about this, was first being kind to ourselves. And I am not always great at this. And that's why I wrote about it. I swear, I've been told you this once before, that I swear I really wrote this book for me to allow myself the grace to understand that we don't have to get it all right.
Yeah.
That this entire process is messy, and then it can look messy, and it doesn't have to look any particular way for anyone because we're on our own journeys. But that idea of just being kind to ourselves and treating myself with the same love and respect and grace that I would treat you, just this idea that, like, would I ever tell you that was really stupid? Why would you do something like that? I would never say that to you.
Right.
But I've said it to myself. What makes it okay to say it to you? Like, you're the person who lives with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
So your words to yourself are even more important than anybody else's. So that was something I really wanted to make a strong mention of, is just the words that we use to ourselves and how we treat ourselves is most important as we're trying to get over the, quote unquote, being right.
Yeah. Do you have go-to words that you use to get out of that rut?
To get out of it, stop it.
Okay.
I the other day I actually kind of like hit myself across the face gently, but I was like, nope, not going there.
Yeah.
I tend not to use really harsh language with myself anymore, like I had years ago. But the one that still does come up for me a lot is a sarcastic, "Oh, that was well done."
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel the need to really replace that yet, because it's more in fun. Like, I can just shrug that off and just, it's like me joking with my subconscious or vice versa. It doesn't seem to bother me as much.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll be replaced at some point too. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I have found it helpful throughout the years. I don't know if, I think you have, I'm not sure though, if you've read the book, Untethered Soul.
Yes.
And just the simple art of untethering from the thought, for me, has been extremely helpful throughout the years. And I'll literally just imagine just untying from it. And oftentimes it can get me out of that state that I'm in. Another tip that I had recently come into my presence is just thanking it and just acknowledging, I see you, you're there, thank you, but we're moving in a different direction now. And that has been super helpful throughout the time.
I love it. And that was my last tip on that whole front, is the piece of gratitude, is to being present in all the things that we do have that are blessings in our lives that we can be grateful for. And even sometimes being grateful the stuff that we don't consider blessings, because they're meant to, I really do believe that even the challenges are meant to serve us in some way so that we can learn and grow through them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if in the moment we can get out of our own head long enough to step back and say, I'm really, really grateful for this crap that's happening right now, it can put a different spin on it.
Yeah, agreed. And another note that I made in all that mix is not, and it comes back to the being right. And it's not making ourselves good, bad, right, or wrong for whatever happened. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of life and it's part of growing. And you just know more now than you did 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
So,
yes. And I really, at least for me, that concept of not making myself or anyone else good, bad, right, or wrong, that's been like a lifetime, so to speak, journey of not seeing things that way, and like in this like black or white way. I mean, I'm actually quite curious, like, how that ends up happening, because I see it everywhere. Like, it's really easy for us to get into that mindset of just, it's either this or this, it's either right or wrong, it's either good or bad,
Yeah, yes. And I don't have the answer. I didn't quite catch the question in that.
My question in it was just, how did we get there? Like, is it a cultural thing that we're brought up in a certain way to see things more black and white like that, instead of, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure of the question
I
there.
think it's generational. I think it's just the habits that we learn and the experiences that we have in life that lead us to where we're at now. And my opinion is that, we talk about because in those comments, I hear accountability and I hear responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm a firm believer, and I did a video about it earlier today, that the minute we give responsibility or accountability for anything that we have in life, the minute that we say blame fault or blame someone for causing something, immediately we give up power for our feelings and our
Yeah.
life choices. And to me, that's where I hear most in when I listen to all the interactions I have is there's a lot of giving away of ownership or power of self. And if we as a society would put more clout on that, I think we would see a shift in maybe even being less hard on ourselves
Yeah.
and more understanding of self.
Yeah. I feel like I literally have this conversation every day with at least my older one, maybe second oldest, littlest one, maybe not quite as much yet. But just that sense of asking a simple question like, Evan, why is the garage door open? Very simple question. Should theoretically be a simple answer. Almost inevitably, the response back is not my fault, as opposed to, oh, I can just take care of it, or,
Right.
oh, I left it open, or whatever. It's not always just that, of course, but like for me, I feel like it's recently very strongly in the teaching of when a question is asked of you, come from you, from your answer, not deflecting to somebody else's responsibility. Like, just answer what's there for you. And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why the apple core was left on the floor. I had nothing to do with it. That's different than saying it was him or it was this or it was that. Well, so and so did this first, and then that caused me. Or, one of the kids comes upstairs and says they hit me. Okay, well, Evan, did you hit him? Well, he did this. Okay, what do you have control over? And we're always in that conversation of someone else's actions don't define what your actions are going to be. Your actions are your own to own, just
Yeah.
like your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. This may be a whole nother show on this one because as I listen to all your perspectives on that, I think to myself, it's a good, people don't want to be wrong. And I
Right.
think that that's exactly what I hear is for the boys, but I see it across so many conversations that I have is people don't want to feel wrong. And I think it causes emotions that we've never learned how to deal with, like
Yes.
embarrassment or pride, or perhaps they have a childhood story that when they were wrong, it caused something else that led to something else, which is where you're good because you help remove that stuff from the cells.
Literally just had that experience today
Yeah.
with someone I was working with. Yeah, and it's all really interesting. And in this moment, as we were talking this one through, something that just came up for me is there was something that my husband and I read once when our kids were babies, and we were like, oh, this is great to carry this forward. It was this idea that when disciplining kids as they get older, we want to make sure that we come from the standpoint that they understand not to do things that are quote unquote wrong or make a behavior choice that's unkind to someone else. We want to make sure that they don't do those things and those behaviors, not because they're going to get in trouble, but because it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times kids don't come forward with the truth because they're afraid of getting in trouble,
Yeah.
as opposed to just taking that responsibility and ownership over whatever happened
Yeah.
and going through it.
Yeah.
And even with all the awareness that we've had around this, it still happens.
Yeah. I I mean, I'm 44 years old and I still see it. I still find myself saying, "Ooh, here's this." So I think that it's time.
Right.
And it comes back to my comment earlier. It's the generational shift because if we
Mm-hmm.
spent so much of our lifetime and our parents taught us a certain way and their parents taught them a certain way, then it's been brought into our demeanor for lifetimes, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. All right, Doc. So the other point I want to make sure that we get through is, and we talk about is the 7 best doctors.
These are my favorite.
Yes. And coordinating the chaos, you talk about this in your book. Walk us through the 7 best doctors and what you recommend for moms and everyone for that matter in this area.
Yeah. These doctors that I reference here are the best things that I essentially recommend for self-care, or at least a very good, strong starting point for self-care. And that's in the first main content chapter in the book, which I actually said in the book, like, if you can't manage to read anything else, just read this one because it's truly the most important. That if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't take care of anybody else. We can't take care of our families. We're not going to be there. It's that same cliche, whose oxygen mask are you putting on first, right? We've heard it time and time again. So these doctors that I refer to, there's 7 of them, okay? They are, well, we want to make sure we're getting the right quality and quantity of all these things. And these are things like diet, what we're putting in our body, how much fuel we're putting in our body, is going to make a difference in how we feel energetically and spiritually in ourselves. So diet, water, sunlight, fresh air, exercise, sleep, and joy. So I go through all of these in detail one by one and kind of show you my recommendations on like what a ideal, theoretical, healthy, balanced diet looks like for most people. But then again, someone else's ideal is not the same as someone else's. And so you have to be a bit more intuitive with what works for you and your body. So I go into details about diet things, exercise. Moving your body is always better than not moving your body. But if you're pushing yourself too hard, I go into details on that in the book as well. And just, you don't want to push yourself too hard, because then that can have the adverse effect. You can start to get depleted and start to have the exact opposite effect that you want from exercise. And so then in that same sense, sleep, you don't want to get too much sleep. There's like a sweet spot, right? And so as I go through these 7 best doctors, it's all about the right quality and the right quantity of all of these things. And whatever balance that's going to look like for you is going to be different than the balance that your neighbor has found.
Yeah.
And the balance that you find today might be different than the balance you find in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real for a second. My sleep was not the same when I had a newborn compared to now. And I can stand on a mountaintop all I want and say how important sleep is, but I didn't talk like I did now when I was in the thick of it with a newborn that was waking up every 2 hours. So you have to kind of roll with whatever your current life circumstances are giving you and create the best balance that you can in all of these categories.
Yeah. Okay. So busy mom, busy person, they're not necessarily where they need to be on all 7 right now. What is the one that you say, okay, start here, start with this one first. And once you get that one locked down, go to the next?
That's a really good question.
I'm good at really good questions.
I know. I can't answer that because it's going to be different for everyone.
Okay. So
there are
one general that you'd say, if they're behind on all of those right now,
yeah,
the one that's going to impact you most fastest is this.
Right. My initial, it depends. Okay. It depends on how all of them are suffering.
Okay.
Like my gut says to do diet first, because it's quote unquote almost easiest to control. Where like we can just start making decisions to buy healthier foods and just start to do certain things like that. Just make slightly, more empowered decisions as far as that's concerned. And those things alone will fuel our bodies in a better way. They'll make us feel more stable emotionally, which will lead to the other ones likely stabilizing on their own anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of want to say, but then at the same time, if somebody hasn't been moving at all, just getting up and going for a walk in the middle of the day could be that jump start that does anything. Quite honestly, I really believe it's different. It'll be different for everybody. And so my honest answer with that is pick the one that you feel like is going to snowball you into the other categories.
Interesting as you say that, because the first one that comes into my mind is joy. Because to me, if you're focused on joy and enjoying the kids and life and moments and being present and just being a little less worrisome about what's not going right in your mind, maybe leaving that laundry a couple days when you really want it done now, or leaving the dishes for a day because you're exhausted. To me, that one that naturally leads to you wanting to eat healthier, or you wanting to get outside more, or you wanting to exercise more?
I 100% agree, which is why it was so hard for me to answer that question, because I almost said that because it would lead into everything else. And I just also know I've seen it so many times that if someone's diet is really, really off, they can't feel that same joy because their biochemistry is just truly off, that they're literally depressed
Yeah.
and can't feel that joy
Yeah.
until certain other things have become balanced, chemically speaking.
Totally get it. And been there. Yeah.
Yes.
What other tips do you have on the 7 best doctors that, okay, so do you recommend someone sees their practitioner, get in contact with you? Like, what are some starter points if they're not sure where to start and what to do with getting those on track for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like it depends on what kind of practitioner you already work with. Like if you literally have just had a baby, you might be seeing either your OB or your midwife or something, for like a follow-up. They do the 6-week, follow-up, where they give you that little survey and ask you questions to see if you have postpartum depression. And you don't have to be quote unquote diagnosable to have certain anxiousness or need support. And so that tends to be where I tend to want to come from is I don't care what they label you with. Let's just get you healthy and find the best way to get you balanced and more centered as possible. So, if you're happy with your current practitioner and you feel that you can have a good, strong relationship and a conversation about all these things that are going to take into account all the angles of what truly impacts someone's health, mentally, spiritually, chemically, nutritionally, emotionally, physically, all of it, then great. If you feel like there's somebody that whoever you're interacting with as far as your health is concerned is missing some of that, because I mean, I've seen it so many times where your therapist deals with all the emotional stuff, but they won't touch, how you're moving or if you're eating well. And your nutritionist is going to maybe focus on what you're eating, but they're not going to focus on how you're feeling about it, and so on and so forth. And so I personally just try to come from the perspective that all of it matters. And the more that we cannot outsource body parts to different practitioners, the more that we can. That's why I do holistic medicine, is because I'm looking at the whole person and how every single organ system in your body is relating to itself emotionally, spiritually, everything all relate together. So if you found yourself, if anyone watching found themselves in that kind of situation, I'd be happy to just, have a conversation and see if I could help in any way.
Do you offer remote work, Christy, for the viewers that aren't local to Wilmette, your office is in, right?
Yes, my office is in Wilmette, Illinois, and I do offer remote work. In fact, I've been working with a beautiful little 2.5-year-old in New Jersey, I want to say recently, and it's been amazing. She's doing really, really great. Like it's literally, she's had she looks like a totally different child now, and in just a few short weeks, it's been really, really amazing. So, yeah, I enjoy working with people in my office and remotely, whatever ends up working for people.
How does a remote healing session work? Can you explain that to our viewers who are uncertain
Yeah.
how that works?
Yeah. So my first visit always starts the same, whether it's remote or in person, where I just gather information and history about, what's going on with you, how long has it been going on, what are your goals, priorities, talk about diet a little bit. In this particular little girl's case, we also talk about, her birth and delivery and what's been going on. And so after getting all that history, we just start to I start to analyze what is in their best interest nutritionally, emotionally speaking, and structurally. And so for the remote people, I recommend some different supplements that they can get on our website or even locally if they have a health food store that works nearby. And then we'll do some just longer distance energy balancing techniques, to essentially just kind of like calm the nervous system. Let me tell you, that's not as easy for a 2.5-year-old to sit still in their mom's lap while we're doing things. But it works. And it's really amazing and powerful to see what somebody can feel when you're not even sitting next to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Christy, we are coming up on a half hour, and I thank you. I'm so grateful for your time again today. Any final words for anyone watching?
Put self-love first. Yeah, that is what just came into my space right now. Put self-love first. focus on loving you, and then the rest will flow in a very beautiful way across your whole family.
Awesome. Christy, thanks again. Guys, thank you to everyone who's watching this now or on the replay. And for more topics, let me know what you want to hear about, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you.